Hi, this is Ronald D. Moore, writer of Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica, and you are listening to Authenticity Radio with slade-suiter.
Hey, this is Demi Lovato. Amazing.
You're listening to Authenticity Radio.
Authenticity Radio with slade-suiter.
Baby, I'm not like the rest. Don't wanna break your heart. Wanna give your heart a break. I know you're scared it's wrong. Like you might make a mistake. There's just one life to live, and there's no time to waste. So let me give your heart a break. Give your heart a break. Let me give your heart a break. Your heart a break.
And now, your host, who has the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper, slade-suiter.
He's got everything he needs. He's an artist, and he don't look back.
And thank you so much for joining us today. This is slade-suiter.
Everything he needs. He's an artist, and he don't look back.
And I am broadcasting today from the Authenticity Radio Studios.
Out of the nighttime and turn the daytime.
The soul of money. Do you have a healthy, respectful relationship with money?
Proud to steal him anything he sees.
What a timely interview for today's topic, because money seems to be a point of contention, the point of anxiety, the point of conflict for so many people on this planet. And who better to go at this than the author of The Soul of Money, Lynne Twist. And Lynne Twist joins us on Authenticity Radio today. Lynne is also the co-founder of the Pachamama Alliance. She is a teacher and fundraiser, and she is a global activist. And she is joining us from sunny California. Is it sunny, Lynne?
It is sunny. It's beautiful today here.
It is a real pleasure to have you joining us today.
Well, thank you very, very much for having me, and very, very kind and generous of you. It's a delight and a pleasure to talk to you.
It is so wonderful to have you here, because this is your world. You're very familiar with it. And so, Lynne, what is the soul of money? What is money all about?
Well, first of all, it's the title of my book and the title of an institute that I run called the Soul of Money Institute. But I think your question is, what is the soul of money really mean? And, it's a little bit of a trick title, I must admit, because money does not have a soul. However, we do. And we are the users of money. We're the inventors of money. We created it as a tool for humankind. And it is a carrier or a currency, a current that runs through almost every life on planet Earth. And it's a carrier, just like water, of what how we use it and the intention with which we use it. So what I'm really meaning by the soul of money is we can give soul to money. We can use money in a way that's consistent with and an expression of the deepest longings, commitments, and highest good of our soul. So that's kind of why I call the book The Soul of Money and the Institute The Soul of Money, because it sort of hints at that.
What if I am experiencing anxiety, Lynne, around money? And so many of us seem to be experiencing an anxiety or suffering around the theme of money. And it doesn't help in the midst of a financial crisis, especially here in Spain. I turn on the television and I see that our financial institutions, our banking systems, our political system is just full of corruption. It doesn't help at all. So what about the anxiety and the suffering that so many of us seem to be going through in regards to money?
Well, the anxiety and suffering around money that you experience is not uncommon. In fact, it's a norm. In fact, people who are not upset, angry, feel wrong, bad, anxious, and suffering around money are really the mutants among us because they're so rare. Most people are completely gripped, whether they have billions of dollars that they have some control over or whether they have next to nothing. It really is interesting. It's not a function of how much or how little people have. It's actually, that doesn't explain it away. And this anxiety, this suffering, this upset, this feeling that we've done something wrong, that we did do something we shouldn't have done, or we didn't do something we should have done, or the constant worry and anxiety we have around money, even if we have more than we need by kind of a rational standard, is something that seems so private, so personal, so individually me, not anybody else. And we hide it. We're embarrassed about it. There's a lot of shame around it. Even some of the wealthiest families on this planet have shame and upset and anxiety around money, and it just doesn't seem reasonable given that they have, they're flooded with money. But they're embarrassed that they have it. They don't feel they deserve it. Some of the wealthiest people on earth are crazier about money than I am, because this stock market goes down for, one teensy, then they can't sleep, and, so it's weird.
Or they throw themselves out the window.
Yeah, it's just completely insane. And I've really looked into this situation, and I feel pretty, I feel kind of happy what I've discovered, and that is that the suffering around money is not as personal as we think. It's not your personal rainstorm. It's not my personal rainstorm. It's raining on everyone else too. And the suffering lives in the culture of money, in the culture in which we all live, the commercial, consumerized, overconsumptive culture that we are swimming in. And the suffering is in the culture, and then we personalize it. So then I looked at, well, what has it be there in the culture? And I've taken a page from Buddha's teaching on this topic, and Buddha said many, many amazing things, as we all know. But one of the things he said that really struck a chord for me in this topic is the source of all suffering is a lie. The source of all suffering is a lie. So I've been spent the last maybe 40 years looking at what are the lies we tell as a culture of humanity around money that are the source of this enormous suffering around money, on the topic of money on this planet. And that's kind of where I've discovered some insights that have given me and many other people some modicum of freedom.
Wow. So we're living amongst a big lie, because money really touches everything and all that we do. And it seems that there is kind of like a universal suffering. Yes,
very, very, very much so. And I've worked for many years, I worked on hunger and poverty with the Hunger Project. I was managing operations in 47 countries. Some of those countries were countries that you and I would call resource-poor countries, like Ethiopia, Mozambique, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Namibia, Ghana, Senegal, places that most people would call poor. And I did fundraising in some of our wealthiest nations, like Japan, the United States, Canada, Sweden, France, et cetera, et cetera. And wherever I have gone and done my work, as a fundraiser, a philanthropist, and as an activist, it's become clear to me that our relationship with money, our distorted, really hurtful relationship with money, where wounds and hurts abound more than in any other topic of our lives, it's pretty much everywhere. And so I started to realize it's not this personal story that we all kind of think is it's just me because I didn't invest in Google when I should have, and I did invest in startups that failed, or It isn't because my harsh father said this, that, or the other, or it isn't because I did this or that or the other thing, or that you did this, that, or the other thing. It's actually in the culture of money, because the culture of money now is riddled with lies, a whole network of lies, which I'd love to talk about and help unpack for people.
So you mentioned, as far as the lies go, that the greatest, I'll ask you, because I don't want to give away the surprise here, because I did read your book, and also the online Audible course, which is fantastic, people, and if you're torn between the two, get both.
Great, I love that.
Okay, so what is the greatest lie, Lynne? What is the greatest lie that we're dealing with when it comes to money?
I'll get to that in a minute, but first let me say a couple things. There's a whole network of lies, and one of them is that we've forgotten that we invented money. We invented it. It is not from the natural world. Money does not grow on trees. Pennies do not fall from heaven. We made it up, and we made it up about 4,500 years ago. We are the authors of this stuff called money. We created it ourselves, and we created it 4,500 years ago, money historians say, for the purpose of facilitating the exchange of goods and resources among ourselves so that everybody would have what they need. That was the original purpose of money, to make sure that everybody had what they needed. And an example is that if I, before money, wanted a pig, and you were the pig farmer and I was the cobbler, I would have to just hope that you needed shoes, or that your children needed shoes, or you needed your shoes repaired in order to get a pig, because that's what I could offer you. But if you didn't need that, then I would need to figure out what you need, and you might say, well, I need corn. So I would go to the corn farmer and say, do your kids need shoes? And if they did, I would be able to fix their shoes. He'd give me corn, then I'd give you corn, and you'd give me a pig. But it was very complicated. So we invented money to facilitate the sharing of goods and resources so everybody would have what they needed. And money became a tool to facilitate everything in its original purpose. Now, thousands of years later, all these instruments and distortions have taken place, and rather than using money to ensure everybody has what they need, money is now used in a way that marginalizes, exploits, accumulated over here, withdrawn from people over here. Billions of people have no access to the economy. Money is now actually controlling and manipulating people rather than serving them, and people take actions for the purpose of receiving money rather than using money to facilitate the sharing of goods and resources. It's totally gotten distorted. And so now money has all this baggage, and it's lost its original purpose to serve us. So that's one of I'll call that a lie. And, I can say a million of them, but we give money its power. It doesn't have any power. We made it up. It's just paper or marks on a computer screen.
Tell us about that. Tell us about that, the paper. I love that. Go ahead for our listeners.
Well, we actually, if you imagine yourself, if I told you that I was going to show you a Zambian kwacha, which is the currency in Zambia. Most people haven't been to Zambia that are probably on the phone. Maybe some people have, but the currency there, the last time I was there, is very large and it's orange, and it's kind of beautiful. You kind of think it's a piece of art. It's so well orchestrated and designed. And if I passed it, if I handed a Zambian kwacha to you, you would think, gosh, I could frame this. It's so lovely. This orange, the Zambezi River, and picture of a rhinoceros, and the freedom fighter, Kenneth Kaunda, etc. But if I told you that it was worth $100,000, it would suddenly have enormous meaning in your hands. And you would be a little, intimidated by this orange piece of paper. Before I told you that, it was just an orange piece of paper. So what that illustrates is that we assign money its power. It has no power on its own. We assign it its power. And one of the great lies we tell about money is we've assigned money more power, more importance than human life. And that is a lie. And you can really see that we've done that because we will do horrible things to each other for money. We will kill for money. That's very clear. Criminals do that. But we all, in some way, kill a little bit for money. We make a dying rather than a living, doing things we hate. Billions of people on Earth are just barely making things happen for themselves and their families and doing something they hate that does not honor them, that gives them no self-expression, that gives them no dignity. We will make a killing instead of a living. In other words, there are people, many people, who are doing things that they know harm others or marginalize some huge swath of the population or damage the environment or generate toxins or destroy something. And that's legitimate in the society we live in if it produces enough money. We sort of look the other way. So we will make a killing rather than a dying. We will not speak to a relative or a very close friend or an ex-husband or an ex-wife over a money issue. We'll do custody battles over children. All of that says money's more important than human life and our relationships.
Oh, dear.
You know, if you loan money to somebody, they don't pay you back, and they can't talk to you anymore, and you can't talk to them anymore, that says the money's more important than that person. And we will destroy a rainforest for money. We've made money more important than the natural world, which we know is a lie. We know it's a lie. Yet, we behave in ways that say money's more important than the natural world. We'll spew toxins in the air. We'll pollute the rivers from which future generations will drink for money. If there's enough money involved, we'll find a way to do real damage to the environment. And we know that's a lie. That says money is more important than the natural world. And we've made money more important than God or spirit. We've really displaced church worship with shopping centers on Sunday mornings even. You know, stores maybe are closed in Barcelona, but in most places they're absolutely, you know, there's some of their biggest shopping days are that day of rest, that Sabbath, that day when we used to be doing spiritual work. So we've really taken money and we've elevated to such a importance that we've made it more important than anything else. And everybody knows, there's nobody who knows that that isn't true, that is a lie, that isn't the main purpose of life. Yeah. Yet, most people's whole lives, every day, every week, every month, are oriented around getting as much money as they can into their own hands. And so it's become this thing that we're really lying about in the way we live. So that's kind of some of the lies. And then there's the big kahuna I'll talk about in a minute, and that's the lie of scarcity.
The lie of scarcity. So getting back to scarcity, I mean, it seems to be true, doesn't it, Lynne, that there seems to be a limited supply about almost everything, and there seems to be a huge population growth in this world, and just look around, look at all the people starving.
So first of all, I'll just say that there's a set of unconscious, unexamined assumptions that are embedded in the money system, but since money has become so predominant, it's also embedded in the way we think. And we as human beings, I believe, have a whole network of unconscious, unexamined assumptions that are before we even think, before we see. It's almost like wearing glasses that we forgot we have on, and we look at the world through a lens of scarcity. And it's the lens, not the world. So this is a very difficult thing to get because it's like looking at your own eyeballs. So I'm not talking about the fact that in Ethiopia there's not enough water for everybody to clean and safe water. I'm not talking about that. I worked in Ethiopia. I've held dying babies in my hands in Bangladesh. I know there's places and people who don't have enough. I am not talking about that. I'm talking about the unconscious, unexamined mindset, blind mindset that has us look at the world and look at anything and everything and see there's not enough to go around. Someone's going to be left out, and I want to make sure it's not me. There's just not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's not enough vacations. There's not enough sex. There's not enough love. There's not enough this. There's not enough that. And that there's not enough. This toxic mindset of scarcity has what I call 3 toxic myths inside of it. The condition or climate of thinking or mindset of scarcity. And the first is what I just was saying, there's not enough. It's kind of like a unconscious, unexamined lens through which we look at everything. And you'll notice, even when you have enough time, then you'll start thinking, I don't have enough to do. You turn anything that's enough into not enough. Not you personally, but all of us do. It's a way of perceiving the world that's a mindset, and I'm calling it the lie of scarcity. So the first toxic myth is there's not enough. And the extended statement of that sense is there's not enough to go around, and someone somewhere is always going to be left out. That's really toxic myth number 1. There's not enough. There's not enough to go around. Someone somewhere is always going to be left out. And that mindset, that belief that you don't even know you kind of have, shapes behaviors that are completely inconsistent with our humanity. And it's there's not enough, it's not enough. It ultimately kind of denigrates into I'm not enough. So we have a deficit relationship with ourselves and with the world. And, we get up in the morning, didn't get enough sleep is the first thought. Second thought is I don't have enough time. The third thought is I don't have enough to wear. Then the first meeting is you don't have enough time to get it done. And the second meeting you didn't have enough time to prepare. And the third meeting and the fourth meeting, and you don't have enough time for lunch, and you didn't get the kids home on time, and you do this and you do that and you do that. And the last thought we mostly have is I didn't get enough done today. And so we start with I didn't get enough sleep and end the day with I didn't get enough done. It's kind of like, in today's world, that's kind of the siren song of life.
There's a whole cycle of dissatisfaction, of never quite being happy wherever we're at because we're always seeking.
Yeah, you get a raise, and rather than you're happy about it for 10 seconds, then you realize, God, that's not really enough. It's just no matter what it is, we turn it into an unconscious, there's not enough reality.
Well, there it is. You say it over and over again, unconscious. Yeah, it seems like we're really, really unconscious, and if maybe that's a way to kind of key onto it, it's kind of like,
if you know that if you get conscious of something you're unconscious about, if you examine something that is unexamined, it's the beginning of freeing yourself from that prison. And that's really why I call these lies, because it's so insulting that you want to uncover them. So the second toxic myth that's part of the great lie of scarcity is more is better. More of anything, more of everything is better. So no matter what it is, we think we need more of it. Because there's not enough to go around, then we need more. And this constant chase for more this, more market share, more square feet in our house, more sweaters, more shoes, more time, more love, more sex, more friends, more this, more that, and this craving, there's not enough of anything, but I want more of everything, is part of this mindset that is part of the consumer culture that has us destroying the earth, that has landfills everywhere with all kinds of stuff in it that we don't want. It has us building storage units for our stuff when we can't fit anymore in the houses that are.
That's true, isn't it?
We're just crazy. We're nutty. And we'll say to ourselves, God, I got to clean out the garage. There's so much stuff in there, but I can't do it today because there's a sale at Macy's. I got to go down and take advantage of the sale. It's just totally irrational. So the first toxic myth is there's not enough. The second toxic myth is more is better. And the third toxic myth is that's just the way that it is, which keeps it all in place, which has us think there's nothing we can do about it. We just got to, quote, unquote, buy in, cave in. It has us resigned, and it has us sort of beaten down so that all we do is just buy more stuff and kind of worry about money all the time and do anything we can to get more of it. And so that's the condition. I call it the lie of scarcity. And I say that all of these lies are the source of the suffering because we know we have sold out to money. And deep in our heart, we know that. And as a culture, we've sold out to money. And it seems like you can't escape the sellout. And so that's really what I mean by the lies we tell being the source of the suffering. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And the toxicity of each one of these lies, it is like a poison. Because it eventually seeps into our whole person, and it influences all of our actions. Just as a toxin would.
And you can see it so clearly in the United States, where I live, which is, the richest country on earth in the history of the world, really, and also the most indebted country in the world and in the history of the world at the same time, which kind of shows that we've become such a deficit nation with this huge, kind of almost unconfrontable debt. And I know that's happening in Spain. I know it's happening in Europe, too. So we've played this unfortunate leadership role in this whole thing. It shows that the culture of the United States and the culture now, global culture, is a deficit mentality. In other words, we value, it's an accurate reflection of a culture that puts all the value and importance on outer riches and completely puts no value or importance on inner riches. That creates a deficit culture, a deficit mentality, and an actual deficit. So the deficit we're facing in your country and in mine are an accurate reflection of a way of thinking and being that's totally off.
Wow. Lynne, has there ever been in history a healthy example of a society that was not an in debt society? I'm just curious. I'm thinking out loud.
Yes, there are. They exist today. I now work with indigenous peoples of the Amazon, and they, number one, they don't even use money, so that's helpful. They're completely prosperous. They have everything that they need. But when they're in the forest, they live in complete reciprocity, and the good of the community is the highest ethic, and then the individuals are cared for by the health of the community. So the commitment, the highest commitment, is to have the community be healthy and well taken care of. And then inside of that, every individual has what they need. We've individuated so much that we will individuate at the expense of the community, which is a reversal of the way indigenous people have lived for centuries. There are societies like the Tibetan society, which obviously is now a diaspora all over the world, but their highest ethic is inner peace, inner meaning, inner value, inner worth, rather than outer wealth. And that there's as I think probably people know, there's such a incredible tapped into joy and peace and contentment and happiness in a culture that really values the inner life. Many of our tribal cultures around the world have this gift that they can give us as an example of how to get out of this mess we're in. But I think what I really want to go to, if it's all right with you, is what I call the radical surprising truths, because really they just understand something that we've lost touch with, and that is the radical surprising truths. We're caught in the lie of scarcity. But there's when you clear that away, when you let that go, when you realize it's a mindset, not a reality, then it clears away that lie so that you can actually see what I'm calling the radical surprising truth.
And bringing it to your consciousness without judgment. And that seems to be an important piece right there, without judging yourself in the process, because it's really coming from the back burner, and you're putting it up on the front burner. And
right.
So,
whenever we bring anything to consciousness, it changes the game so dramatically. And to do it in a way that doesn't make you wrong, but actually realizes that you're caught in a cultural, like a sea a cultural sea that we swim in that we don't even know we're in, that almost brainwashes us to hoard, to accumulate way more than we need. You know, to have one woman think she needs 47 pairs of shoes when she's got 2 feet, you know. And I don't mean to say that I'm not interested in buying the next pair of shoes for the outfit that I don't have the right shoes for. I am totally there, and I think we many of the choices we make are very, very wise, but we're most of the time caught in an overwhelming sea of advertising and messaging that tells us we're inadequate unless we acquire something else. We're not, you know, we're not enough. We need more. We're not thin enough. We're not young enough. We don't have enough hair. Our boobs aren't big enough. You know, we have to do something. So we've got to do something to ourselves. We've got to be more than we are, and those messages are not subtle. They're everywhere all the time. They're raining on us. That's
And
part
constant. I mean, just constant barragement.
It's a tyranny, and if you don't really know you're in the tyranny till you take a look at it and give yourself a little bit of a breathing break from it, and you see the magnitude of the messaging that tells you you are not enough and you must accumulate more. And that's just the way that it is. And those are the kind of the 3 toxic myths of scarcity. You're not enough. It's not enough. We're not enough. Secondly, more is better. More of anything, more of everything is better. And when you get more, that'll be satisfying for like 2 seconds, and then it'll generate the next experience of lack, and then you need more again. And then the 3rd toxic myth is that's just the way that it is, and get with the program.
Geez, what a call for introspection.
I think one thing I could say to people is to really look in your life, in your heart, in your closet, in your basement, in your storage room, in your drawers, in your garage, in the nooks and crannies, and see how many billions of things that you have, yet your attention is on wanting more of absolutely everything all the time. And even people who are really working very hard to live a simpler life, who are downsizing very consciously, even that is somewhat a reaction to all of this, which means it's part of it as well. So, you know, we're kind of caught in it no matter where we are on the spectrum.
So a logical first step would be to bring to mind, or actually bring to consciousness, quote, all the stuff, unquote, that we have in our lives. And this stuff is what has been unconsciously taking us away from the important relationships or nature, our relationship with nature and with others. And to do it in such a way that is present and without judgment, not to judge ourselves during the process, because that's kind of counterproductive, isn't it?
Right. And yes, that's right. That's very good advice, I think. And it really is stunning to do that. There's a power there.
You know, Lynne, you've mentioned several times in the audible reflection that you did, you talked about spiritual authenticity, the importance of spiritual authenticity. Can you talk a bit about this?
The indigenous people, I guess I should say a little bit more about them right now, because they've taught me so much. It's just completely amazing. They actually see spirit in everything. You know, they don't think it's kind of over there and we need to go towards spirit. They see it in everything, and they have a reverence for everything. So there's a wonderful phrase that maybe you've heard, but indigenous people really do say, especially the ones in the Amazon that are just having their first experience of the modern world and realizing that these people out here outside the rainforest, they're just nuts about money. They don't care about anything else. What is the deal here? For them, they say, well, you can't eat it, you can't hunt for it. Why would anybody want it? To them, they just don't understand it. And now they realize that in order to interact with the outside world, they need to be clear about and have some relationship with this thing called money. But it's still mysterious to them. because where they live is in the spirit world, not the material world. And then the spirit world gives them so much nourishment, so much clarity, so much joy, so much depth and happiness. And then the material world, it's not that there isn't one, but it is in service of nourishing the human being that is alive in this world in a way that you can be spiritually in tune. And spiritual authenticity, for me, is a kind of a way through the maze, the tyranny of the consumer culture. And I can talk more about that a little bit when we kind of get to what's the real radical truth about life if you clear away the myth of scarcity. So maybe we should go there.
Well, let's go there. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If that's okay with you, a story that where I really learned this. I learned this, what I'm calling the radical surprising truth, this kind of phrase that I use because it so stunned me when I kind of got this. I was a student of the great Buckminster Fuller, the humanist, the futurist, the engineer and architect who invented the geodesic dome, who was called the grandfather of the future in the 20th century. And I knew him when he was in his late 70s and 80s. And Buckminster Fuller was often called Bucky. And he was a very, very wise, very beautiful man. And at an event I attended in San Francisco Bay Area way back many, many, many years ago, he stood on the stage. It was in 1976, a long time ago, before many people listening were born. And he stood on the stage in Marin County in California, and he said, humanity has just passed a very, very critical threshold in the last 50 to 100 years. He was talking about, even though, when he said just, because Bucky thought in big swaths of time, he meant recently, in his way of thinking, was in the last, maybe 50 years. He said, we have just passed a very, very powerful threshold. And he held his arm out and talked about one side of the threshold and the other side. And he said, we've passed the threshold. And the threshold is this. Humanity is in humanity's innovative genius. We are doing so much more with so much less. And that is the direction of our science. That is the direction of our innovation. It is the direction of our creative genius. We are doing so much more with so much less that it's absolutely unequivocally clear that we're now living in a world where there is enough for everyone, everywhere, to have a healthy and productive life. We clearly now live in a world of sufficiency. That means we move from a paradigm of you make it at my expense, a you or me way of seeing the world. You make it at my expense, or I make it at your expense, which is a you or me paradigm, you or me way of thinking, that there's not enough to go around, and it's always, if I make it, it's always got to be at someone's expense. That's the myth of scarcity. That you or me way of thinking, he called the way it used to be, and then he said, now, crossing this threshold, we move into a you and me paradigm, where there's enough for everybody, everywhere to make it at no one's expense, a you and me paradigm. And that's a world of sufficiency. And that's a completely different kind of world, a completely different kind of relationship with one another, a completely different way of being. And he said this is a groundbreaking threshold, and we've crossed it. And there will continue to be this innovation, this genius of doing more with less in a way that we will discover the real truth of sufficiency, the sufficiency of life. And when Bucky said this, I was stunned. I don't even know if I understood it, but I kind of got it. I had a Kundalini experience. I started to cry. I was in the audience. but something really about that really struck a powerful chord in my life. And then he said something really important on the heels of it. He said, we will not realize this new paradigm, this new way of seeing and being, the you and me paradigm of sufficiency, of enough, for 50 years. Now, Bucky said this in 1976, so that's a long time ago, but it's not 50 years ago quite yet. But he said over the next 50 years, we will need to things will need to start falling apart because we're looking at the world in a paradigm that's no longer valid. And he said all the institutions of humankind are rooted in a you or me understanding of the world, are rooted in a belief in scarcity. The economy is clearly rooted that way, deliberately and very clearly rooted that way. But then he said education is rooted in a you or me understanding of the world. Governance is rooted in a you or me understanding of the world. Religion, he said, even, is rooted in a new you or me understanding of the world. And we will need to rethink, redesign, recreate all the major institutions of humankind to have a consistency with this realization of a you and me paradigm. And that will take us 50 years before we can actually turn the tide. And if I look at that prediction, I think it's totally valid. I think what's happening in Barcelona, in Spain, in Europe, in the United States with the economy is the disintegration of a paradigm that no longer really makes sense. And we kind of all know it. We're trying to prop it up with loans and more debt, and we just keep going deeper and deeper into debt. That seems to be our only solution. And to me, it's a beautiful, I mean, terrible, but kind of beautiful, dramatic display of what he predicted. And let me just say something before I get people confused. When Bucky said enough or sufficiency, what I really think he was talking about was a state of being, a way of seeing that lifts the blindness of scarcity so that you can see what's actually there. And I have a principle that I would like to speak about it that I call the principle of sufficiency. And it's really now the kind of key that you asked me to get to unlock the mindset of scarcity. Can I go there next?
Oh, yes. What is it called? The principle of?
The principle of sufficiency.
Okay, the principle of sufficiency. Go ahead.
If you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, which is what we're scrambling to get more of and brainwashed to want more of, if you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, it frees up oceans of energy. It's all tied up in that chase to turn and pay attention to what you already have. When you turn and pay attention to what you already have, when you nourish it, when you make a difference with it, when you share it, it expands. So let me say that again. When you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, which is mostly what we're trying to get more of, it frees up oceans of energy that has been all tied up in that chase to turn and pay attention to, give your attention and intention to what you already have. When you make a difference with what you already have, when you nourish it, when you give it your reverence, your attention, and begin to share it, it expands. It's the opposite of what we think when we hoard. So another way of saying this principle is what you appreciate, appreciate. What you appreciate, appreciate. And when I say the context or the principle of sufficiency, I'm actually not talking about an amount of anything. I'm not talking about something that's halfway between more than you need and less than you need. I'm talking about a way of seeing, a way of being in the world where you see the sufficiency, the great fullness of life, the radical beauty of what's already there that is so stunning that you give it your attention, your intention, and you begin to share it and make a difference with it. And it sounds maybe a little bit dreamy, but I'll tell you it's highly, highly practical, and I think it's the truth. And if you really look at your own life and what gives you joy, what makes you really content and fulfilled and happy, what is the true bounty in your life? It's your relationships. It's the people that you love. It's the people that would do anything for you. It is the joy of doing work that's meaningful. It's the power that comes from a spiritual practice or an athletic practice that gives you that kind of buzz of knowing who you really are. It's not acquiring anything. You know, acquiring something gives you a little buzz for a while, but then you need the other thing that you didn't get, you know. If we clear away all of that and really look at what's already there, nourish it, pay attention to it, love it, and share it with others, it is the key to a life of prosperity. And that's actually, when I say the soul of money, that's really what I mean. This experience of the radical, surprising truth of sufficiency. And after I heard this whole talk from Bucky Fuller and I began to reshift the way I was seeing the world, kind of without even knowing I was doing it, I began working on hunger and poverty. So I went to places where people, I went to places where there was really huge, incredible physical challenges of malnutrition and you know, oppression. But what I saw and what I was able to work with was the wholeness, the completeness, the beauty, the natural joy and power in the people in those circumstances. And it was relating to that allowed them to see the fullness, the completeness, the richness that would pull them out of those dark circumstances into the fullness of who they are. So I want to remind everybody that I'm not denying there's places where we really do need more of X or more of Y, or to feed people and to give them health care and education, etc. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a mindset that has us constantly thinking that the answer to everything is more and that there's not enough to go around. And to recognize when you actually see the sufficiency, the wholeness, the beauty, the completeness, the beauty of what's already there, then that is the key, the center of fulfillment, of satisfaction, of prosperity. And from that place, it naturally grows in its own, in the recognition of it, in the appreciation of it. That's what has that experience, that prosperity actually expand and be fully realized. So did that make sense?
Wow, I didn't stop you at all, because it was like a poem, and it was a poem with truth, and I was just thinking that what you appreciate appreciates, mm-hmm. And I was thinking of how much we are depreciating our own self and our own abilities, our own beautifulness that we have inside. And if we appreciate externally, we can also appreciate internally. And that will appreciate too in forms of creativity, in forms of new ideas, and in forms of helping me to see with new eyes.
Exactly. And if you really focus on what I call the gratefulness of your life.
Please say gratefulness and thanksgiving.
Yes. Well, that's a teaching from another 80-year-old teacher of mine, Brother David Stendel-Rast. Brother David Stendel-Rast is an amazing Austrian monk who's a hermit and a great wise man, and he speaks on gratefulness and is a living icon of gratefulness. And in one wonderful session I had with him, I asked him, Brother David, given that you're the greatest teacher in the world on gratefulness, can you tell me the distinction or the difference between gratitude and gratefulness? And he gave me the most amazing answer, because this actually will distinguish something else that I'd like to say, that sufficiency and abundance are two different things. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but let me just say that sufficiency, before I get into Brother David's example, is precise. It's exactly what you need. And it's a precise experience. It's being met by the universe exquisitely over and over again. It's an experience of trust, an experience of perfection, an experience of kind of innate universal beauty. And abundance, which is what we all think we want, is more than we need. If you think of it in the context or the condition of scarcity, abundance turns into excess and landfill and storage units, and that abundance more than we need is in the frame of scarcity just a little bit problematic. But in the context of sufficiency, abundance has a whole other meaning, which I'll explain in a moment. But anyway, so Brother David, this wonderful, amazing guy, and he has a website, gratefulness.org, which I highly recommend.
Oh, gratefulness.org.
Excellent. Well, gratefulness.org is a wonderful website, so that would be a good thing to tell people about.
Great.
So anyway, here I am with Brother David. He's in my living room. He's this amazing, beautiful guy. He has no possessions except a little bag with books and a journal in it. He's the happiest, most incredibly gorgeous, delicious human being. You would just love him. Mm-hmm. And I say, what's the difference between gratitude and gratefulness? He says, well, gratitude has two great branches. One is gratefulness, and the other is thanksgiving. And then he says, gratefulness is the experience of life when the bowl of life is so full that it's almost overflowing, but not quite. It's almost overflowing. So full is that bowl of life that it's kind of bowed at the top, but not yet dribbling over the edges, just perfectly full. And when you're in that state with life, you're in the great fullness of life. And You're one with God. You're one with God. You're one with the universe. And there is no other, because it's all one. It's all perfect. And that is so fulfilling. It's so exquisite that the bowl of life overflows then. And that puts you in the other branch of gratitude called thanksgiving. And when you're in the branch of gratitude called thanksgiving, the bowl of life is constantly overflowing. And all you want to do is give and serve and share and contribute. So you're so grateful that there's an other so that you can share and give and serve and contribute. And that is so fulfilling that it puts you in the great fullness of life. The other branch of gratitude, where the bowl of life is so full and almost overflowing, but not quite, just perfectly full, bowed at the top, and you're in touch with the great fullness of life. And that is so exquisite that you're one with God and one with the universe, and there is no other. It's all one. And that's such an exquisite experience that it overflows into the great bowl of thanksgiving, which is the other branch of gratitude, and you want to share and give. So I'm repeating myself just to give you these two images, because the two branches of gratitude represent sufficiency, gratefulness, and then the other branch of gratitude is true abundance. And true abundance only flows from enough, from the recognition of enough. That's really where true abundance comes from. And so these are the two branches of gratitude: gratefulness and thanksgiving. Gratefulness when you're one with God and the universe, and it's all one. And thanksgiving as the bowl of life overflows and you want to give and serve and contribute and share, and you're so grateful that there's an other, because that's what gives you a sense of prosperity and satisfaction. Sharing, giving, being of service. So that really is the kind of whole picture of this breakthrough in thinking and seeing that I had with Buckminster Fuller that led me to really recognizing that this is the radical, surprising truth about life. And the condition of scarcity comes from the consumer culture. It's a mindset. It's not real. That doesn't mean there aren't people to help. That doesn't mean there aren't places where people need more. But I'm talking about ways of being, ways of thinking where we really truly can be prosperous at any moment in our life, like right now, no matter what your circumstances, and begin a life of sufficiency, gratefulness, constant service, contribution, and thanksgiving.
Wow, Lynne, how beautiful! When you were speaking, I had an image of breathing in and out, in the gratefulness, and out in the thanksgiving, and the expression going back and forth, and then also the yin yang circle came to my mind.
Exactly.
Circling within itself, and also I had another understanding that there were so many people. What I find a little unbalanced is everyone's looking for abundance. That there's some thinking out there recently. Abundance. That it's all out there and it'll be given to you. And the key that I felt, and this is something that kind of surfaced for me, is the word enough.
Yes, exactly.
It's a grounding to everything, and it makes.
Yeah, it is, and it's in a consumer culture. We race right past enough. We don't even know it happened because we're so fixated on more. But when you actually engage with this distinction of enough, it is a revelation. It is so inspiring. When you reach this moment where you see that there is enough, that you've done enough work and it's time to complete, even though there's more to do. It's an incredible transformation in your life, where you've had enough to eat and you're satisfied, you're satiated. This experience of enough, or you have, and it doesn't mean that you don't the next morning want to feed yourself again. It's a space that we almost never have inhabited, I discovered, until it's distinguished. And when you distinguish it, it's life-changing, and it's also society-changing, because we live in a planet now where, the environment is telling us we've gone a little mad. And even the financial crisis, if I could speak about that briefly, that you're going through, that we're going through, that the world has been going through, in a way, is part of what Buckminster Fuller predicted so long ago. Because if you really look at the economy, it is a subset of the ecology. Eco. The ecology is not at service of the economy. The economy is a subset of the ecology. Everything. The telephone I'm talking on, the microphone you're using, the floor you're standing on, the rug, everything comes from the earth. Everything comes from the earth. And we're now using more resources than the earth can regenerate. So we moved into a 1987 ecological debt. Ecological debt.
Oh, wow.
It was 1987 when we started using more resources than the earth can regenerate as a human family. And now we're 41%, we're using 41% more resources than the earth can regenerate. And ecological economists predicted in 1987 that within 20 years we would have a huge financial crisis, and we have it. Because we're in ecological debt, it's now reflected in the economy. And I say, until we learn to live within our ecological means, the economic debt will continue. Borrowing money is just more debt. And so this crisis, I believe, will not be really over until we learn how to live in our ecological means. That is, taking only the resources from the earth that she can regenerate, and stop living off an ecological credit card we can never pay back. And that, I think, is the true message of our time and the message that I would like most of all for people to understand. We need to change our way of living, not sacrifice anything, but recognize the exquisite distinction of enough and begin to live in the beauty of sufficiency rather than always thinking we must have more.
Wow, Lynn, I'm just thinking about my own life right now. I have a lot of work to do.
Well, it's not like there's something wrong. It's just that we're living in a paradigm that no longer fits what is the reality of life. And actually, this ends up being way more satisfying way of living, where you realize your needs are met. You don't need to meet them, overmeet them. You need to have them met. It's so fulfilling. It's so simplifying. It's so cleansing. And somehow we need to find out how to do that as a society, and we need to find it out in the next, we need to do it now. I mean, they say within the next 20 years.
And here's the delivery method. Love and compassion, understanding and patience, and returning to love and compassion.
Yes, which is and we have an unlimited supply of that. That's where there's unlimited, true, authentic abundance.
Yeah. Okay. So there's the delivery of being able to balance the ecology of our economy, because there's a lot of resistance, special interest groups and governments, national interests, and a lot of power structures, businesses.
Yes, it's a time of enormous transformation, transition, and shifting from a way of being that's really hundreds of thousands of years in the making to a whole new era. And that's really what the end of the Mayan calendar, all the prophecies about 2012, 2013, 2014 are about. That this is the time, this is the moment for a new era for humanity. And it's a reinvention, and it's such a thrill and a privilege to be part of it.
My goodness, Lynn. I mean, it is such an honor, and what a privilege it is to be alive today, where we can take part in the changes. We can have an active part, and it seems like fear is what's kept us in this deficit, and so love would naturally be the key to unlock this deficit. And so, Lynn, I always ask my listeners if they have a message that they would like to give to or deliver to humankind, and I know that you do. So what is your message, Lynn?
Well, I would like people to know that there is a beauty in the struggle. There is a profound opportunity in the crisis. And I think people kind of know that, but they don't really know how to access it. And I think it is, at least one route to it, is to pay attention to what you have, appreciate it, nourish it, and share it. Whether that's money, your home, your love, your family, your work. And the orientation is about sharing rather than accumulating. Be known for what you allocate rather than what you accumulate. Be the kind of person who is in service, in contribution, in sharing, in making a difference, rather than trying to accumulate, acquire. And that way of being is the way through. Limits are not in the way, they are the way. They're beautiful. And so that behavior, that way of seeing the world will be the source of true prosperity for each of us, and also for the long-term future of life, for future generations, and will honor all other species. It will be the gift that we give to all children of all species for all time, and it ennobles your life. Rather than being a sacrifice, it's a way of ennobling your life and recognizing you were born at a time that you could be part of the great turning, and you are.
Wow. Well, there you go, humanity. There's the message to humanity. Lynne Twist, thank you so much for joining us today on Authenticity Radio.
Thank you. my pleasure, my honor, and my joy.
This is Slade-Suiter. Until next time, be authentic, be true, find the true soul of money, and be free.
Baby, won't you please come home, begging once more. Baby, won't you please come home. See you soon, babe.
Real people and real authentic talk. This is Authenticity Radio. Conflict is a choice you know. Whoa,
Oops.
watch it!
Sorry.
In order to gain a new perspective and how to resolve conflict in your organization, business, or family, go to AuthenticityRadio.com. All right, enough.